everybody. Welcome to the show. Tonight we have a debate, and the parameters of the debate has shifted as this kind of pre-debate formed. Started out it was going to be a pro and anti BLM debate, and it's kind of morphed into more of a validity of protest debate. Is that correct, guys?
I can see that to an extent. I would agree. I think it comes down on my side, at least.
Hold on 1 second. Don't start off yet. But
oh yeah, sorry.
we can call it that. But we lost James for a second.
Yeah, it's just I'm connecting to my car's Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay. Cool. Very cool.
So there's no lag.
Sounds good.
All right. As pretentious as that sounded, oh my gosh. Right.
As pretentious as that sounds. All right, so we're back on. All right, so it's going to be kind of a pro and anti-protests debate. So kind of just hash out. Now, the shocking thing is we've got the white guy pro debate and we got the black guy anti debate. So that's kind of, I don't know. When I saw that happen, I was excited to see it happen. I want to see new views. I think James will bring a very unique view to the anti-debate and the anti-protest movement, where there's already a lot. You've got Candace Owens and Maj Touré. There's a lot of guys that are.
They charge quite a bit for an interview, though. I think.
Do they?
I think we're getting a good deal with James here.
All right. Well, yeah. So far, shh. Be quiet. He might catch on. But anyways, James, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing okay.
Good. You look kind of tired.
It's been a long weekend.
Yeah. All right.
Week. Sorry, this is the middle of the week. It's been a long week.
Yeah.
That's how tired I am.
Yeah. Yeah. All
Red
right.
Bull.
All right. Kory, how you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm the same as every day. I'm just podunking away doing my thing.
All right. Good. So, what we're gonna do? We're gonna do kind of a loose Oxford style, which means we're gonna have a 5-minute lead off with.
Well, how about if we let them each open up with just how they feel about this?
Well, that's what it is. It's a 5-minute opener. So Kory, we flipped a coin earlier, and Kory won the coin flip or lost it, depending on how you feel about opening up debates. But so Kory is going to lead off. He's going to present his opinion on everything, and then James is going to have a 5-minute to present his opinion. And then you'll each get a block in the same order of 10 minutes for rebuttals. So don't use your opinion for a rebuttal. Try to use your opinion for the. Are we live? Are you seeing it on there?
Oh yeah, we're live, bro.
All right, I'm not. We're
doing this. So go. Why don't you kick it off, Kory? Go. Just tell us how you really feel.
Perfect. I actually wrote something up for the 5-minute opener, so I'm just going to kind of read off of what I had said, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Cool.
That you got 5 minutes. It's yours
Perfect.
to use how you want. If you want to play a kazoo.
My name is Kory Sagendorf. I am here tonight to discuss the BLM movement as well as the far rights groups such as Proud Boys and any other groups that fall within any form of extremist category. I personally am not for any form of organized oppression or any form, which would include far left extremist versions of Black Lives Matter that we see happening today. Also, with that also being said, any so-called patriot groups would fall within that as well. I am here to discuss the dangerousness of both groups and how deadly these groups have both become. The Black Lives Matter protests, as well as the movement itself, in my personal opinion, began with the correct intentions. As we all know that within the last 50 years, we have all seen the systematic oppression and racism both within our institutions and within our country. Now, for far-right extremist groups, those groups can be dated back to the latter part of the 18th century. Black Lives Matter started in 2013. So I am here to understand a little bit better, maybe from the opposing side, as well as debate as to why we are blaming something that is a product of a larger situation and larger problem, as opposed to not fixing the underlying issue. So unfortunately, by calling BLM a more dangerous movement, it's literally doing nothing but causing a form of divisiveness within the country that is going to cause and put us into some form of a potential civil war. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I am saying that we are leading ourselves down that path. Now, publicly, I know that I have seen everybody say things on both sides, calling one side or the other 100% hateful, calling the other side terroristic, and calling people bad people. I've even seen it happen on just on public as well as personal pages, basically saying that just because you're part of a certain group, that you are a bad person. I do not believe that. I believe that people are falling within an extremist side when in all actuality, we should be coming together and coming to an understanding of both sides in order to better help. By putting us into a position where we are trying to lead people by fear, we are going to cause nothing more than heartache and pain through the entire country. I personally would like to know the differences between that far left extremism versus far right extremism, and I would like to understand why the far right feels so adamantly to act as a militia almost, or even instill an organization, even though they claim not to be, and understand a little bit better why that happens. Now, really quickly, I do want to note, I am a resident of Tooele County. I am a social media influencer as well as an outspoken public personality in my area. I've attended the BLM protests that happened here in Tooele, starting at the Veterans Park and ending at the Pool Pavilion. Now, this was a wholeheartedly peaceful protest and only interrupted by a hard right-wing extremist that had made accusations to all of the BLM protesters, that saying they were essentially saying that we were going to be breaking a different form of, or be breaking statues and be tearing things down, when in all actuality, me being there, and also I have recorded the entire thing, there wasn't a single person that was out of line. Now, on the opposite hand, we're seeing far right extremists that are going out of their way to rev their engines, try and scare people by yelling out, hateful comments, things such as fuck you black people, things like that. And those are not things that we should be doing. So I'm trying to understand, and I would like to also see why this is seen as an okay action for something that you feel is wrong on the other side. Through my research, I have, and then just through simple Google searching, I concluded that the far right extremist groups seem to be a much more dangerous side than the BLM, though there is still a lot of danger and a lot of issues on both. So with that being said, now I would like to bring up the idea of Kyle Rittenhouse. This is a perfect example of somebody who should not have been in a situation that they were in, but yet that side is the one that caused death. Now, no one else during that protest or riot, if you want to call it, had died like that. So why is putting somebody or saying that one group is wrong for being dangerous and deadly, yet the other group is doing the exact same thing? I personally do not think that is correct.
All right, Kory, time's up.
Ding, ding, ding.
Time's up. That was your 5 minutes. It sounded like there was a little more powder in your horn, but we'll go ahead and
I've been researching this for about 7 days straight, so I got more than enough. You're good. Right.
We'll kick it over to James now.
Hey, so did you want me to reply to him, or did you want me to state my stance and then partially reply to him?
Your stance. You go ahead and state your stance. We'll have the rebuttal, 10 minutes each rebuttal after you both state your stance.
So my name is James Sullivan. I'm one of the co-founders from Civilized Awakening. We have a platform of one of our platforms is a new approach or an old approach to civil rights, and it's just a conservative civil rights movement. And what we're focusing on is, kind of the conservative part isn't necessarily meaning the party, but more of a reserved, like peaceful, inviting everybody in, non-radical, very moderate civil rights movement. We believe in police reform, we believe in prison reform, and we believe in justice reform and education reform where we need it the most. Um, and that's not just me. The movement that I'm doing, I'm actually kind of piggybacking off of different people in the country, different conservatives like Senator Tim Scott, Dr. Ben Carson, Candace Owens, and a bunch of different other leaders that are seeing the radical left use Black Lives Matter as a political tool. My entire belief in Black Lives Matter is that it's a Fox movement. It's not for Black people. It's done more damage to Black communities and Black families and Black lives than it's benefited us. Kory did mention Kyle Rittenhouse. I'll talk about him later on in this thing, but Kyle Rittenhouse killed one person. Black Lives Matter has been responsible for 62 deaths for their during their riots. They've killed their rioters have killed their protests that turned into riots. They shot a retired cop, a retired black, sorry, not cop, a retired black chief who's protecting one of the businesses in his community. They killed him in cold blood. There is no reasoning for it. They weren't using self-defense. They killed him because they wanted to loot his store. Kyle Rittenhouse was defending his life. Now, I don't believe that he should have been there, but in all concepts of the term, Kyle Rittenhouse, he did act the way he needed to, and he was retreating. And in retreat, I will say that if I was in that position, I wouldn't be able to be that accurate with my weapon. But we'll go into that a little bit later. A little bit more is that Kory said he went to one Black Lives Matter protest. I've been to 45, most of them being in Utah, some of them being in Portland and Seattle. I went to the Autonomous Zone. I saw how that played out. I watched as white people use the name of Black Lives Matter to implement socialism in the heart of Seattle. I've been to several different protests, and 98% of these people are white, and the colored people are Polynesian and Hispanic. There's not a lot of Black representation, especially here in Utah. I went to Seattle and Portland, where there's a little bit more Black representation. And I found the same thing. 95 to 98% of these people were white. And the white people were the people that were causing all the damage, that were looting, that were assaulting people. And they've even turned against Black Lives Matter protesters that are Black, because these people are telling them to stop. And there's been several instances we can talk about a little bit later where they completely assaulted these people, beating one of them within an inch of his life. He's still hospitalized. I can get into that a little bit later. The Patriot movement, and I'll get into that. I'm not talking about the Proud Boys, but the Patriot movement started because we watched in Minneapolis, as we watched a line of 80 officers hold their own against 2,000 protesters that turned into rioters. We watched that. We watched as they were not backed up. We watched as their governor withheld the National Guard backup for them to come in. And as American citizens, as patriots, we wanted to back our officers up. It's not a counter protest. It's not an anti-protest. It's literally backing the blue. And it's being there to deter violence. And in instances like Salt Lake City, where we don't have riots every day, like Portland, to deter violence. And if it does happen, to back up our police. We've already had two events where we as Patriot groups have coordinated with Salt Lake City PD for the Blue Lives Matter March, when there was a huge counter protest that was going to instigate violence from us. We collaborated with them. We're collaborating with police. We're following the laws. We're following their rules of engagement. But a little bit, we don't have permission to shoot or anything. We only use self-defense. We don't go and agitate. So there's a lot that Kory's researched, but there's a lot that I've experienced and researched as well. So that's how I feel about it. Just to quickly recap, Black Lives Matter is not a civil rights movement. Even if you take away the organization and you go down to the core, their beliefs are socialism, capitalism. You can't be black and succeed in capitalism. That's what their beliefs are. Their co-founder recently said it, and a lot of them reiterate it. And the Patriot movement, we've had one death, one person, Kyle Rittenhouse, that killed somebody out of self-defense, not in cold blood to take their property, like Black Lives Matter has done. So I can name several dozens of instances where Black Lives Matter has taken life for the sole purpose of taking property.
All right. Well, you hit it just about dead in time.
Dave here from the Tooele Happy Hour. If you like spooky ghosts, aliens, conspiracies, or just anything that goes bump in the night, give the WoW Pod a listen. It's another show on our network, and you're bound to enjoy.
Now is the rebuttal section of the game show. So we'll go ahead and let Kory adjust his rebuttal for what James said.
I'm ready to go.
All right, go for it.
So first and foremost, it was two guys that was killed by Kyle Rittenhouse, not one. But I'm not going to go too far into that. Now, when it comes down to it, one thing that I want to say is, yes, you may have been to a bunch of different protests. Now, I said I went to the one here in Tooele. I didn't see you there, so I don't know if you decided to go and just stay out of sight or not, but I was there. I have been to other protests as well, but we're not going. I mean, I've been to probably about 5 of them total. And so when it comes down to it, assuming that I just went to one and I'm basing my opinion on a single instance, especially in a rural community, is a little bit asinine. So please don't assume. Now, when you say that there's no black representation in Utah, just with a quick Google search, when it comes down to it, the largest minority group is going to be the Latino and Mexican community, which I am part of. Now, with that being said, the Black Lives Matter movement, not organization, but I'm going to say movement, is for all minorities. And so all minorities, including myself, have seen different forms of systematic oppression in one way or another. I'm sure that that James has encountered it at times as well. So by saying that there was no black presence there here in Utah, the idea that there is a minority group such as the Polynesians and the Mexicans that are there, that shows you that this is a bigger issue than just blacks. Now, granted, the name itself says Black Lives Matter, and it started back in 2013 because of Trayvon Martin. Now, this has grown way beyond. Okay. Now, with that being said, now during all of this, just because there isn't always black people at an event doesn't mean that the issues aren't happening. Now, you say that you haven't encountered systematic oppression. Now, me personally, when I lived in Sandy, I was pulled over many times. I even helped out in doing sting operations because cops were targeting Mexicans. So I drove around in my Cadillac, and I went to see how many people would pull me over. I got pulled over a bunch. So with that being said, I know that it happens, and I know that it's out here. So that's a big issue that I would like to address. Now, when you also say that you were collaborating with the police, now collaborating with the police, which is what the Black Lives Matter movement is most firmly against, is showing by default that you are siding with one or the other. If you truly believed that you were trying to fix something, you would be trying to collaborate with the groups themselves, and you would be trying to create a better understanding for everybody, not just by leading through fear in one direction or another. Now, I've seen on your post where you have called Black Lives Matter people bad people, and you've called them terrible individuals. You said that to me when we spoke prior. So by saying that, well, that's the thing, is they're not, because you're saying. So do you also believe that your side is a...
James, go ahead and just let him get it out. You'll rebut in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm gonna kick off, or I'm gonna keep going with this. So if you are saying that the Black Lives Matter are bad people, but you're saying that your group are the good people, you by default are causing a divisive issue within our country. This is not fixing the problem. This is simply making it worse. I think that if you were truly trying to fix the situation, you would be going to the people, not the group leaders or anything like that, because obviously we know that the groups on either side of extremism are terrible at doing anything other than causing fear. So you should be going to the people. Now, once again, I'm not a politician. You've stated that a few times, that I don't have very much political clout, and that's fine. But what I am a person of the people. I'm the person that is out there daily meeting with hundreds of different people about many different subjects. And you know what I see? I see people's opinions are very different than the radical side of either or. So how can you feel that you are doing yourself, or that you are doing good for the country, when you are doing the exact same thing the other side is doing? And that's the end of what I have to say.
Before you go, James.
Hold on. We'll jump in a minute. Let's let.
I do want to clarify one thing about what Kory stated, and he said when the police pull you over, that's oppression. But I would like to also interject and say it's more selectivity than it is oppression. I don't think it's oppressive for a police officer to decide, this guy looks suspicious, I'm going to pull him over. Oppression usually has to do with bullying and being aggressive. And,
So you're saying that the police that have a problem with Mexicans because they have grown to believe that because you're Mexican, you're going to be an automatic criminal, that they're not trying to look out of their way. You call it selectivity, but that on its surface is selectivity. But deeper beneath it, that is simply put oppression. That is them trying to push down one community to the other, which is an exact reason why we see minority communities inside of impoverished areas, and yet we aren't doing anything more than increasing a police presence. Yeah. So if we assume that we are, can I go?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Keep going, Kory. You still got 3 minutes.
So with that being said, I mean, like if we go into an analogy sense of how. I just lost my train of thought, actually. So I'll it'll come back to me, but I will end myself there.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, James. You ready?
So I'd like to address two things. Kory, to march in the street as a parade, you need a permit. If you have more than 300 people, you can be walking out traffic. That's what we meant by collaborating with police. We also collaborated with police because Justice for Bernardo, whatever his name is, they formed a wall in the middle of the street to block us off. We were collaborating with police to get around them. Another thing is that I know that you've been to 5 protests, but there's a lot of kind of ignorance showing, not in any disrespectful way. You're saying you need to go to the people, you need to talk to the people. I would love to have you. I can arrange it, actually. I can get you to a place with Alexis Scott. Holy crap. I would love to get you in a room with Alexis Scott. I want you to try to talk some type of reason to her and tell her that Black Lives Matter, the organization, is far left and blah, blah, blah. She will straight up decimate your character, dox your address, race traitor will be painted on your door, pictures will be taken of your kids, and you get 185 calls to CPS like I did, okay? And she's done that to several different people. There's a couple of lawsuits that are going up for it because she's radical. But the thing is that she is the moderate among the Black Lives Matter leaders. She's actually pretty calm. She decimates characters. The other leaders, they find out where you live, they dox you, and they throw Molotov cocktails into your living room, like they did to Tyree Sanders in Minneapolis. All right, they doxed a cop. They found out his name. They went to his family's house when he was on duty, and they threw a Molotov into his living room. Okay, so you can't really walk into Black Lives Matter and give them a different point. If you don't believe in what they believe, then you're done. And the other thing is that when you said that, I said that all people in Black Lives Matter are bad. I said anybody that believes that Black lives should be over any other life is bad. And I'm telling you this right now. You read the national mission statement, and you read Black Lives Matters Utah's mission statement, and you'll see literally in the byline, anybody not Black know your place. Do not tone correct. This is led by Black African lives. They don't care about Mexican lives. They don't care about gay lives. They say they do, but they don't. They care about Black lives. But at the end of the day, when you go to the protests, you go to Seattle, you go to Portland, it is the white radical leftist extremists that are going and using this movement to suppress First Amendment speech, to 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 instill fear and intimidation into the citizens around, and to actually, and this is what it's going to turn into as we get closer to the election. We're about 50 days away. Voter suppression. All right. Another great example of why you can't work with Black Lives Matter is because they don't even care about all Black lives. They don't. If you're a conservative, they don't care about you. Alexa Scott, if you want to Google her right now, or go to Black Lives Matter Utah, it's going to be the page that has 4,000 likes on it. She's even said Burgess Owens, he's running for the 4th Congressional District. He's a former NFL Super Bowl player and champion. He lived through segregation, Jim Crow. He saw lynchings. He saw segregation. He had to eat at different tables. He couldn't walk in the same road as white people. He chose to be conservative, and she called him a coon, a race traitor, and basically said that she was going to vote for the Ben McAdams, who is the Democratic white counterpart, because this Black man didn't agree with what Black people should agree with. Another thing that I need to tell you about is that if you're a Black man, my skin color, and you go into a Black Lives Matter place and you're conservative, they tell you that you're not Black. They tell you that you don't understand your Blackness because you don't agree with their rhetoric. And this isn't Black Lives Matter National. This is Black Lives Matter Utah. I will also tell you something about cops. I have 3 cousins that are cops. I've been on ride-alongs, and I'm going to take away from that. David, that's your name, right, David?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You drive, right? You drive a car?
When I have to.
Okay. And when you're on the highway, when you're driving behind a car, can you see their, like at night or during the day, can you see like their exact skin color? Is every car untinted? Is it a clear window that you can look through? Can you see exactly what they look like when you're driving your car?
Honestly, yes, you can know. Just from body shapes and things like that, you can make a very accurate, detailed assessment. I have to admit, you can.
I will say that
when I was
law enforcement, we were trained not to look at the driver, but at the car. And the precursors, anyways, I'm taking away from your time, but the precursors for criminality will often show up in a car.
And yeah. And the time of day, the rate of speed, and a couple other factors, but you would know about that.
License plates as well.
But the other thing that I was saying is that when I'm driving a car at night, I can't really see the race of other people. In fact, until like 2 years ago, I remember just sitting in the car and just remembering that there are people in these cars because, you just kind of see them as vehicles you're trying to get around and merge in with. And I've talked to a couple of officers. They try not to do U-turns or flip a U to get a person. Like they'll have somebody speed by unless they're being reckless. A lot of times they won't even flip a U because it puts them in extreme danger and it has caused a lot of deaths. They actually encourage officers in Utah not to flip a U unless you see reckless driving or something's been called in. So that's the other thing I wanted to address. Another thing about Kyle Rittenhouse, just going back to that a little bit. He handled himself out of self-defense. Black Lives Matter has taken more than 82 lives across the United States during their riots, 13 of them being Black. One of them, as I said, being the retired police chief who was Black, protecting his business, or a friend's business. They shot him in cold blood. White Antifa members shot him in cold blood to loot the store. All right. There's no self-defense going on in those instances. In Portland right now, they're not even advocating for Black lives anymore. They're not screaming Black Lives Matter. They're not saying justice, no peace. They're not doing that. They're literally just going around in pickup trucks, bicycles, and different vehicles and hitting businesses, looting, coming out and going. And then when they're arrested, they claim they're Black Lives Matter protesters. They're not held in jail. They're let out sometimes with very minimal bail. And if they do get bail, there's a huge fund available to bail these people out. That doesn't exist for the Patriot movement. Kyle Rittenhouse has been one of the only people in the Patriot movement to actually take life. Okay, Black Lives Matter is taking more life than Kyle Rittenhouse has, and he did so in self-defense. So that argument in itself is invalid. Another thing is that when he's saying that you want to be divisive, Black Lives Matter is the civil rights movement. You cannot go with Black Lives Matter and say the civil rights movement. It's an abomination to even compare it to the civil rights movement. It is a Marxist movement. It is a socialist. It's a building up socialism. They want to suppress speech. I've been at several rallies where Lex Scott told all the white allies on the Black Lives Matter side to take a knee to their black brothers and sisters. She made them kneel. I have pictures of that. I can send those to you if you want. She made them kneel at Cottonwood in front of her to acknowledge their privilege. All right. This is not an equality movement. Something needs to take its place. And it's not the far right and it's not the far left. It is a different civil rights movement. The last thing I'm going to leave off of is that the conservative side, we are for police reform. We don't want to defund and abolish our police. We are for prison reform. We don't want to, go and let everybody out just because they're black or they're white. We want to do prison reform. We think it's bad when a black person and white person go to the justice court and they both have the same background, same class, same criminal charges, and the black person is 75% more likely to get the maximum sentence than his white counterpart. All right, we don't think that's right. We don't think that having a cop presence in a minority area that, by the way, is most of these minority slums that he was talking about are in Democrat-held cities like Chicago, New Orleans, DC. But anyways, when they defunded the police in Chicago and they took funding away from the police, their crime rates rose up by 2,300%. That's a huge inflated number. But over Memorial Day weekend, they saw 136 people get shot. All right, 136 people get shot over a 2-day period in Memorial Day weekend. New York City, people from where I'm from, they're leaving in droves because of the defunding of the police. Veteran police and noted police are quitting their jobs all over the country, leaving our police forces to less seasoned officers, which opens us up to more mistakes because their trainers are now gone. There's a lot of things that Black Lives Matter has done, but a majority of them have been completely negative. They have also they have caused more man-made damage to this country than there ever has been in history.
All right, James. All right.
And they call themselves the civil rights movement.
That's time. We did take a little bit of your time off there. I recognize that, but
no, you're fine.
Kory shaved some of his. So, all right, you guys have had your rebuttals, and I do believe that. I mean, if I were to be honest, you both made good points, but I don't feel it's fair of me to judge, but I do have to myself personally come down with James on this one, because there has been a lot more violence, especially violence against innocent people by the initial protesters. And of course, me and my crazy anarchist mind, I consider blocking traffic means of violence. So I just consider it that. Just as if a police officer was to pull you over illegitimately, that's an aggression. But what I would like to do now is I say we go through the comments, see if there's a couple of questions in there, and see if there's any questions in the comments directed at either of you. And if anyone has any questions they want to ask, jump on there, throw them on now. And in the header, direct them to who you want the question to go to. So let's go through. Jody asks, is that Kory from Tooele that does the piercings? Why, yes, it is.
Kory,
Yep,
can you
Kory.
Can you plug your business real quick?
I would like to say one thing though. When it comes down to it, I will reiterate, like I said in my opening statement, I'm not for either group. So don't place me within the BLM organization. I think that both organizations, the BLM and the Patriots, are both in 100% wrong, and they're causing a divisiveness. So being part of either one is not fixing the situation, and that's the true reason that I'm here. I'm saying that the movement is a surface level issue that is caused by a much more underlying problem. And until that problem is addressed, you are going to continue seeing an escalation on both sides. Both sides are 100% wrong.
Kyle Rittenhouse was the only negative thing that came out of the Patriot movement. Or
Do you have any idea how many times I've been called some slurs that I won't even repeat because we have other people on here? But do you have any idea, just since this all began, how much I've been called that stuff? And I try to be a very respectful person, so please help me understand how your side is no different than the other. You yourself just said that Lex Scott, the group leader themselves, are a terrible person, but I'm seeing that the groups that the
We really
groups
want me
that
to?
are I'm saying right now, when I was in, just going back to the Tooele protest, because the majority of the people watching right now are from Tooele. Some of them are the ones that were at these protests on both sides. I didn't see anybody acting as a buffoon or imbecilic or anything like that on the BLM side. They were being 100% respectful. Yet the only people that I see saying things and insulting people and making assumptions that people are going to be destructive and whatnot are coming from just that single side. So when you say that you're for this side that's doing this, and you and your cohorts are saying that they are the righteous ones in a sense, and that they're doing all the right stuff, but
I never said that.
exact same thing. Well, but you're the one saying that your side is correct, unless you are telling me right. So are you saying that your side is incorrect as well?
I'm saying that human error exists, but blatant disregard for human rights, human safety, that exists on Black Lives Matter side. So I'm saying that human error and
it's on the other side as too.
One at a time.
You need to put blame
it's
on
there.
Both sides. It's not the
there.
Patriots are good.
It's there, but they're not burning down buildings. They're
killing people.
They're not shooting black people. Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 people. Black Lives Matter killed 89 across the country. All right, he killed 2 people in self-defense. All right,
can you cite your source on this 89? Because I've been looking for that for a while here, for a couple of days, trying to find a hard number.
Due to the writers.
Well,
I'll send my entire data package to you.
I can tell you,
in person, I'd have the papers there.
Off the top of my head, they burned that guy down in the pawn shop in Minneapolis. Then in Atlanta, they shot that 8-year-old girl, just blindly shooting at a car. She was a 8-year-old black girl too.
Yep.
In I know it's Chaz or Chop. I'd like to call it Chode. They shot those 2 teenage boys. There has been a lot of deaths around, and that's just off the top of my head. And there's Chief Dorn down there. He was in Minneapolis as well.
The black Trump supporter that was shot execution style by Antifa.
Yeah,
him as well.
Yeah, that Trump supporter in Portland, they just walked up and shot him. Kyle Rittenhouse, I have a controversial theory on that. I've watched the full video, including the start when he deployed a fire extinguisher against a burning dumpster, so they started chasing him. It sounds to me like on the video someone behind him fired a gun. I don't know if that gun was fired in his direction or fired into the air as a warning shot, because on the video you don't get a good enough visual. But that's when Rittenhouse gets struck in the back, turns around, engages the target, down he goes. And then as he's rolling to get up, gets hit with the skateboard, engages that target, down he goes. And then that the guy, the one-armed man, comes running up, and it looked like the one-armed man was trying to juke him with his pistol, trying to fake him out to get him to lower the rifle, but the rifle was a little quicker. And that's my opinion on Rittenhouse. I see Rittenhouse as self-defense.
I think I would have done the same thing in that situation,
or
at least tried to. He had good skills.
I wouldn't have been able to do it as efficiently as Kyle.
Jesus,
Kid.
I have been through.
You guys are literally praising somebody killing people. You guys are literally, when you say, he acted in self,
yes.
when you say he acted in self-defense,
should he have just gotten
you are
beat
praising
to death?
somebody by saying that they killed somebody.
Kory.
I will tell you right now, that's not right.
Okay,
you need to be against both sides. Fix the situation. Fix the issue. Don't help one side or the other try and be bigger and be more scary.
2 cops were killed. Black Lives Matter. And I think it was Portland. Portland.
Fresno.
They blocked the cops from being able to go into the hospital, and they were cheering for him to die. The leftist media, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, they all make excuses for Black Lives Matter. There's cases where people were killed, and they will say, they'll play that for 5 seconds. They'll be like, the protests tonight were mostly peaceful. And they praise them all the time. They praise absolute violence and anarchy. We are justifying self-defense. It's unfortunate that 2 lives are lost, but they put themselves in that position. They were assaulting him. All right. He was surrounded by 3 different guys. Now, I will say, I would love to speak to his leadership and find out why he was there alone, why there was no buddy team, why he wasn't.
All of the leaders are wrong.
There's a bunch of things that are happening, but that's self-defense.
Trying to fix the situation with the people, not with the leaders. Because you have said this many times that the leaders are all, especially you have at least noted that on the BLM side are like crazy.
We should move on from
They're
Kyle
absolutely
Rittenhouse.
insane. Just look at their page. But I want to say one thing really quick before we get to the next topic. Just one thing. My movement, the Patriot movement, we have been so valid in our speeches. We have been so valid at our rallies. We have been so valid when it comes to Black Lives Matter that we've actually had 2 leaders step down here in Utah. I will not say their names, but 2 leaders step down in Utah. And you're going to see in October, we're going to have a rally called the Unity Rally. And they're going to come out and they're going to denounce Black Lives Matter and announce a new movement. I'm not going to say the name of that movement. We've been meeting up in Ogden, but we have gotten 2 big Black Lives Matter leaders, one from Utah and one from Idaho, to disassemble their chapters.
Hold on. I've got to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Black Lives Matter in Idaho?
There's a Black Lives Matter chapter in Idaho, believe it or not.
4 people driving 8 hours to gather. I've been to Idaho.
There's a Black Lives Matter in Wyoming, too.
You're shit. No.
Just the fact that you guys are joking about this shows how little you guys care about the other side. If you guys want to see progress and you guys want to see change, fix the actual issues.
Kory, I make bad jokes. Live with it.
Well, what is the definition of the issue? This is what I'm trying to understand is you're saying oppression. So what level of oppression justifies the burning down of these cities and the killings of these people? And I understand in combat, like, okay, you drone strike a wedding to get the terrorist, you have to kill some peripheral targets. But this is crazy. I mean, there's like no control over the amount of looting, burning, and pillaging that the barbarians are inflicting at the gates. And you're
causing a snowball to roll, and it's just getting worse. That's one of the biggest issues right there.
What do you mean? Hold on.
No, it's not.
You said you're causing a snowball to roll. You've got to define who's the you're.
The your is anybody who is not trying to come up with a solution and is taking one side or the other. I don't care if you're taking the BLM side or if you're taking the Patriot side. Either way, you are causing a divisive issue, which is only getting worse. Because when you got more Patriots coming in with more guns, quote unquote, protecting, versus BLM who's coming in with more I guess, Molotov-style, homegrown weapons of some form, until both sides either kill themselves or somebody comes in the middle and fixes everything, you're going to see just an escalation. So when I say I am saying anybody that is trying to find themselves on either side. I am sitting here in the middle looking at this going, you're killing yourselves for no goddamn reason.
All right. So we're not killing each. We're not going back and shooting each other. I'm going to say something. I'm going to talk for 1 minute. CHOP was unchallenged. That's what happens when the citizens don't rise up. We let our police do their job. We let the National Guard do their job. And CHOP came. An autonomous zone came where there was a lot of rapes, assaults, and murders in CHOP. All right. An entire zone, a steady block was.
Can you cite sources on that?
Yeah, it was two teenage boys. It was two young teenage black men. They had stolen a car and was joyriding outside of CHOP. And they were engaged by the self-declared. See, here's my favorite part about CHOP is we hate Trump. So step 1, build a wall. Step 2, inactive police force. They did they followed what Trump wanted to do there, except under a communist banner. It was quite ugly, but that's exactly what they did. But I actually have a listener question. Alyssa asks, this for you, James. How do you feel about private prisons? Well, James addressed that in his opening remarks, Alyssa. He wants to have law enforcement and prison reform. Okay?
I can give her a 30-second response.
But there's a little more. And convict leases in the 1800s and early 1900s. Do you feel that set an oppression standard in the prisons?
Do I feel that set an oppression standard in the prisons? I feel it in a different way. When Joe Biden and a couple other Democratic lawmakers co-authored bills that led to mass incarceration, sending people for minor possessions of marijuana to prison for 2 to 3 years. And when you're seeing it disproportionately affect the Black community, destroying and dismantling the Black nuclear family, I see that as a problem. I've seen before Trump came into office, we had more than 16,000 Black men in prisons in Chicago, New York, Detroit, for small possessions of marijuana. And I know that Kory has a stance on marijuana as well. He can weigh in on this. They're literally in cities where marijuana, it was legalized for recreational use. Or medical marijuana use. And some of these people were in prison because they're using it for pain relief, and they were still in prison. Trump came in, he made one of the most impactful prison reforms for the past 2 administrations, where 3,100 plus, probably more now, were released. Those people with minor possession charges were released, and most of those people were Black and minorities. So my idea of prison reform is it's an ongoing battle. Private prisons, I believe that private prisons are very dangerous because most of those private prisons exist in Democrat-controlled cities on the East Coast. And there's nothing stopping them from endorsing a candidate to write prison reform bills or bills that are going to lead to more people going into their system and staying in their system. It's a very dangerous game. It's like a revolving door, and it dramatically affects the Black community as a whole.
Okay, she did a follow-up. She's asking for past tense, not now. She should have said that. I don't know how arguing about what's happened in the past will be a movement forward. We can't.
Or productive.
We can't fix the past.
You can't fix it, but you can.
She's saying how to out.
I think she's asking.
Yeah, she's trying to.
Well, the problem with the past is, one, you can't ask people who weren't there and didn't commit the offense to pay for someone else's crime. You can't.
It's a civil war.
Yes. You say you represent the Hispanic community, Kory. I don't
represent any community except for the normal-minded people.
Hear me out. I
am just Mexican. I'm part.
Okay. Listen for a second. Listen. Can I punish you for what Pancho Villa did in the town of Hill in Texas in 1910?
No, but you can acknowledge it.
What's to acknowledge?
Don't bring it to a lower level and make it seem like it isn't what it was. Just because you weren't there in that situation, you have less of an emotional
what's in the
attachment
acknowledgement?
towards it.
It's in the history books. It happened. It's in the
But
history
see,
books. There's
what
no
I think
acknowledgement.
what I think the issue is like when going to the prison side of this. The prison side of this is what they're saying is the issues that we have dealt with oppression have built up over time in the past, so we must acknowledge it in order to fix the problems in today. Now, I will be the first to admit, when it comes to James's ideas on reform, I actually align with him very closely. I do also believe that we need reform. I do also believe that we should not necessarily defund the police. I'm not for any of that. I am saying that if you want to fix the actual problem, you should acknowledge where things are in the past, because that's going to enlighten you to being able to come up with a solution that will fix it in the future. If you decide to just let the past be the past, we are bound to repeat ourselves.
Well,
there's a lot to acknowledge in the past. I mean, everything from
there is, and that's what makes this a very complicated, dirty subject.
I think we just need to nail it down to some core principles. Is, don't initiate force. I think that's pretty reasonable. Yeah. Don't violate other people's property rights.
Follow the NAP.
Don't rape. I mean, it's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, it's an NAP. Now, moving forward, what is it? The 15th Amendment. When that was written, that's got some shady wordage in it. I think that needs to be addressed, and that's what we can do in the future. But that was, that's got some shady verbiage in it, pertaining to, is it the 15th or the 14th? Well, one of them. It's been a long day for me as well. Oh, I think we're bumping James again real quick. But I just want to say, thank you guys both for coming on. This is it's a brave move. Kory, thank you for coming on. You already know my radical stances before you came on. You and I have proposed about having a debate mm-hmm. about our two political theories before, and hopefully we can make that happen sometime.
Oh, I'd be more than happy to. I honestly, if I was to say anything, I don't see myself as a Democrat. I don't see myself as a libertarian nor a conservative. I believe firmly in the idea of progression. So I would consider myself what you would call a progressive. Yeah. You could go take it back down to the Moose Party that was eventually dissolved, but really at the end of the day,
the progressive
Party. Oh, go ahead.
It's the Bull Moose Party, and
yeah.
There's a progressive at the head of every major war we've been involved in. Did you know that?
I did not. Go ahead and enlighten me.
Well, World War I was Woodrow Wilson, our first declared progressive president. And then, of course, he was kind of driven in there by Teddy, which was considered our first progressive president.
Mm-hmm. Who started the movement.
What about the Civil War?
Well, now the Civil War, that's a complicated one. That's an economic war. Well, it started as an economic conflict. The Republicans rose up in economics to...
So it's not all wars then?
I would say, I said all our major wars. So World War I.
The Civil War wasn't?
World War II. Oh, you're
correct, Kory.
You're correct. All the major wars that define the world that we stand in today. So World War I, World War II, Vietnam started, exploded by a progressive. It was started by Eisenhower by putting, special forces types over there. But anyways, no history lesson. I'm not a fan of progressives because they're the ones that like to bring that gun to every conversation. That's what the progressives like to do. Just look up how many editors.
The progressives want to see anti-corruption. I could care less about anything other than getting corrupt politicians and corrupt businesses out of our lives, which is almost aligning with kind of what you believe, because I know you feel personally that government shouldn't be in our lives whatsoever. I am just on a lesser extent. I say there needs to be less of it.
What allows corrupt business?
any business that's paying into any one of the political funds, even though they shouldn't be, any
Government allows
business
it.
that
You can't have a
is going
monopoly.
out making any form of a stance. I'm not here on my business's standpoint. I'm here on my personal views. Therefore, you can't say a business is not corrupt when they are trying to push an agenda that may or may
All right.
that may help them or help
Kory,
one of their friends.
we need to hold our debate for another time. We've got a couple more.
I got you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
You got a great question here by Elisa.
Yes.
How does both parties feel about what women did to get women's rights? So, like, I think she's talking about the
16th Amendment, the suffragette movement leading up to the 16th Amendment.
Like, how much force or how much aggression did they use to get their goal attained? Which, I mean, I don't think they looted or burned and killed people, and they got the vote.
Yeah.
Who was it that was in office during that time? I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, that would have been in, would have been Wilson, I believe.
Was it Wilson? I'm just going to pull it up here.
But the laws aren't
This has gone a little bit away from the topic.
Yeah, we've drifted
Just
off
a
of
little
that.
bit.
Yeah. Now, let's bring it back and round it out to. I know James had a long day. I've had a long day. Dave's had a long day. Kory sent us his first message at like 1, so Kory's well rested.
Oh, I've been up since about 7. You got to remember, I have like 22 animals at my house.
Oh,
so
yeah.
my house, I have a zoo. So my first 4 hours of every day is handling turtle
Wake up,
poop
put
and
on the
everything else.
Put on the bibs and the straw hat. But anyways, so let's just round it out. So, we have the argument was the protest versus counter protest, and I have my opinion that I'm. This will be me and Dave laying our opinions down. I stand more with the counter protest. One, their reaction to the burning in Minneapolis, and there are people rising up trying to defend their neighborhoods, which was what Kyle Rittenhouse was doing. He was trying to defend a neighborhood where he worked. I stand more with them. I sympathize with the inner cities, and my answer to that, or my query to that, is we need to figure out how to bring them economic strength. We need to figure out what can we do.
Sorry.
Oh, you're good. What can we do to enable them economic strength? Is it, I say we just cut back on any regulations that has nothing to do with them harming a person downstream from them. So kind of the environmental stuff. We have no, we cut back to where they don't have to get licensing and all that crazy stuff for some of the smaller things. Of course, I want to see doctors, anything that has to deal with life. Or
you're talking about businesses, right?
Yeah,
like small businesses.
Yeah, we allow them to start up barbershops without having to go to school for it. We allow them, the people, and we can do it city by city. And we just start today, and we target the worst off area in the United States. We'll go to a 10-city block radius in Detroit or Chicago, and we say, you guys start your businesses.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I think that's the cure. And honestly, someone calling me a bad name doesn't bother me as long as I have the dignity of a job and the ability to feed myself. And we need to allow them to get that. Allow inner cities and color and all that means nothing. We need to allow them to build their futures. Okay.
So I can actually weigh in a little bit of background on that. With the inner cities, a lot of the inner cities you're seeing on the crime end, those also like cities like Chicago, those are the cities with the highest and most strictest gun laws in the country. Those are the cities with the most gun-related deaths because criminals don't listen to laws. And I believe that a lot of the problems in the cities, crime-wise, could be solved very greatly by lessening the restrictions on guns, the ownership of guns, either concealed or open carry. And I see that a lot. I see that the Democratic left, not just being biased, they're in control of their cities, and they kind of purposely separate the black people from each other. They don't want them joining together and solving their own problems. Somebody very famous in the civil rights movement, his name is Malcolm X. He predicted over 3 decades ago that if oppression were ever to come back to black people, it would be in the form of the white liberal. He said the white liberal will be the greatest enemy to the black man. And it's evident I'm not even looking from a political standpoint. If you look at the cities where it has the highest concentration of African Americans, it also has the highest concentration of poverty, and those are in Democratic run cities. So there's a lot of things that need to happen. The first thing that needs to happen, and I just believe this to my core, is that we as conservatives or as moderate Democrats, our biggest mistake was letting the radical left control and dominate our education systems. We never thought that the education systems, a superintendent, would be partisan. We thought it was all nonpartisan, but now we're seeing all these radical left teachers in our schools and in our administrations and in our leadership, like superintendents and school board, designing curriculums, all right, that are indoctrinating our kids. And we're seeing it especially now. That was our first biggest mistake. Our second biggest mistake was allowing the radical left from being able to manipulate an entire race of people, the African American people, in a total and complete self-oppression, to the point where they have to rely on white lawmakers instead of their own local leaders. So that's another thing. So there's a lot of different problems. We can have a conversation outside of this if you want to, man. There's a lot of problems. There's a lot of easy solutions. You just have to take radicalization out of it. And I'm going to agree with Kory on this one. Radicals are bad on both sides. If you're not open to the opinions or the beliefs of an opposing person, and if you believe that what you believe in is the only thing that's right when it comes to politics or life, and nothing else can have any validity, that makes you an extremist, that makes you a radical, and that makes you a dangerous person to society. And that's what we're seeing on both sides. And I want to equal out with Kory on that part, is that it does exist on both sides. Extremism exists, and it's dangerous. Hopefully, one day, or the work that I'm going to try doing with the many politicians and political commentators and advisors I have for Civilized Awakening, we can start getting our movement out there, to start introducing that to more people outside of Utah as well. I just wanted to kind of agree with Kory on that point, because I think there's a little bit of a confusion at the beginning of this discussion.
And I want to thank you for that. One point I do want to make in regards to that is, in an analogy standpoint, look at it like this. And any one of you three can answer. I personally don't have any children. I'm not married, nothing like that. So I can't give this. But if you were in an impoverished situation, now, actually, let me preface this with, Dave, I actually very much so applaud you as well for having a solution to the situation, not just simply, we got to get him open. So thank you so much for offering up a solution over any other issue. So when you say, we should be doing something with the inner cities to help them, that is exactly what needs to happen. So going back to my question to you guys is, if you were impoverished, if you were broke and you had no money, would you steal a loaf of bread for your family?
Thank you for listening. We have opened our network up for ad space. If you're interested in running an ad, please contact us at jared@thewowpod.com.
I really find it hard to believe that I would ever be in that situation.
Well, I would.
Well, let's just hypothetically speaking, would you do it?
Here's the question.
Your kid's hungry. Your kid doesn't have enough nutrition. Would you steal a loaf of bread for your family? Because in my opinion,
I might kill a deer and get arrested by the state and the government, but I don't know if I'd violate someone's property rights. But the government doesn't count as far as I'm concerned.
I would pitch to the food bank.
So
I understand what Kory's getting at.
So where I haven't even gotten into what I'm getting at. So what I'm trying to say is, if people are willing to steal a loaf of bread for their family because they don't have the money to do so because they're in these impoverished communities, that person is going to eventually get in trouble. They might go to jail. I know stealing a loaf of bread isn't going to land you in jail, but we're using this as a hypothetical situation. So with that being said, that parent gets put into a bad position. Now that kid is going to raise themselves essentially, and with the community around them. So if they don't have a parental figure there that is doing the right thing and teaching these children, they're going to do the same thing. So they're going to start stealing more. Then what we see has happened in these communities is they up the police presence. So we have a general baseline of criminal activity happening because of a much more underlying problem, which I've been coming back to all night long. Then we have the kids coming in, the next generation, who once they decide, oh, I got to feed my family, or I got to do what I need to survive, then it gets even worse. And then they bring in police. Yes. Then we see crime rates go up because more police are there. So instead of putting up a higher police presence, the solution should be fixing the baseline issues, whether it's in a democratically ran area or a conservatively ran area. That doesn't matter. The problem and the underlying issue that needs to be addressed is there's a broken issue in that community. We got to fix the break. I don't care who the leadership.
Their problem is. With the prison, the mass incarnation, the prisons, the radical left, with those policies, one of them, their frontrunner Joe Biden, co-authored, has destroyed the black nuclear family, meaning that there's mothers that are raising these people. What they've also done, they have incentivized welfare. Black women in these cities, they get more money through welfare and food stamps if they're not married, which makes them less likely to look for a spouse. All right, because then they can go off of child support, alimony, and sue their baby daddies or ex-husbands for money. All right, so the black family's destroyed. What happens if you don't have a father in the home is that the kid starts looking at outside influences. These influences in these communities in Chicago are more than often gangs. So they go to gangs and they go into gang violence, and then they enter that revolving door. I'm going to address you on police because of the policies that we've mentioned from the radical left and the prison system, the education system. Police being there in Chicago, and the presence that they've been and how they've been like kind of militarized, it has deterred violence. And now that we're defunding them and taking away their ability to defend their communities, we're seeing an increase in death. All right, and I know you said go back to the underlying problem. But the underlying problem is to say the black community needs to be allowed to come together. White people, we do not need the notion that you need a white lawmaker to come together as a black man with your community and you need a white guy to fix your problem is a savior complex that these Black Lives Matter white allies seem to have. But
so which president are you going to be voting for?
I'm going to be voting for Donald Trump. I'm going to be
white leader.
I'm going to be voting for the person that made opportunity zones in Chicago, causing real estate investors to invest in it, bringing business.
To me like you're looking towards a white leader.
I'm not looking towards a white leader. He's empowering local governments in Chicago and New York to come up. He's been the one president that has publicly endorsed local leaders on a grand scale. He's endorsed Burgess Owens here, that's running for the 4th congressional district in Utah. Obama didn't do that. Obama didn't care about local government. Obama cared about only Congress. He only cared about
none of the leaders matter, dude.
Supporting him. What?
None of the leaders matter. It's about the people. If you want to fix the underlying issue, you need to go in there and the power of the people will stop the people in power. Straight up.
Okay, but you have to vote the right person in the office to pass legislation that people want. So you have to start with that. That's the thing. And the thing is,
well, obviously nobody wants either leader at this point. I mean, both Biden and Trump suck. Like it just hands down.
66% approval rating in the black community, and the Democratic left chooses to ignore that. There are more minorities that support Trump than any other Republican president. All right, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. All right. There's more support around Trump from minority groups than any other Republican president, but nobody wants to acknowledge that. I'm not saying we need Trump. We need to keep our governments local. We need to watch the people in our local governments that are going in and they're making laws that are directly affecting us. We need to support our president in office. We also need to watch our local governments, because our president does not decide. He does not decide the state taxes. He does not decide property tax. He does not decide what there's Common Core, but I'm not even going to get into that. But he does not decide what's in our schools. Our local government does. You have to keep government local.
So why do we even care about the national side then? Why aren't we working with local mayors, local council members, with the governor? Because that's where it's going to start.
He did say that he likes Trump because Trump supports more local politicians with positive messages. I think, my opinion, step one, we end the war on drugs. Complete legalization. Turn it
100% aligned with you.
Turn it over to the medical side.
100% aligned with you. I think by reallocating funds and I'm going to go out and I'm going to say this, but if we legalized the drugs, and if we, or not necessarily legalized, but if we decriminalize them at the very least, and then we also regulated sex work, I think that we would see a much different and drastic change in the country. Just
don't make sex work regular. Don't make sex work regular. That needs to be freaky.
My bad. I'm sorry. My bad. No, what I'm saying is some of these things, and like this is where we are going to get into a portion where this is no longer a debate and it's just a discussion, because I align with you guys on a lot of that, and I do see where local government is much more important than the national side of things. But the point I want to get to is it doesn't matter, because when the mass of the people decide that there's a problem, things like what we're seeing with Black Lives Matter happens. And once again, I will reiterate that on the surface level, riots and protests are going to cause nothing but pain for everybody. We've seen that. We've seen everybody get hurt. We've seen businesses destroyed. We've seen lives lost on either side, right? So if we want to fix this and we want to do something, we look at that underlying issue, which is why are people acting out? I brought this analogy up earlier, but if your child comes home and they are acting out and they start yelling and this, that, and the other thing, you are going to want to punish that surface level issue. But until you figure out that kid is getting bullied at school or another situation that's causing them turmoil, you're not going to see a true fix to it. That is why both groups are 100% wrong. At this point,
you know the solution to this?
There should be a third representation of more of a centered line. And until people decide that needs to happen and they start coming from either end, we're not going to see a change. That's the argument I'm trying to make, which is essentially we as a people need to come together and we need to fix it and fix the underlying issues, because the leaders that we're looking to aren't going to fix nothing. Because if you want to go with either side, whether it be Trump or Biden, no matter what, no one's going to be happy. So at the end of the day, it's on you as the person to go Kory in there and fix something. Let's
let James talk for a second about this. And it's good. I think James would have a better insight into the impoverished communities.
Okay, so the first thing I just want to say really quick, and I don't really focus on the federal government. I focus on where I am in Utah. I've been very involved with politics here in Utah. You're saying to look to that there needs to be a third party that comes out. Well, in almost every single president's election, except for Abraham Lincoln's, they haven't been too successful because a lot of their views have been radical. A lot of their views have been off the wall, and there hasn't been a third party leader that has come in with any substantial platform to run our country. So I'm just gonna stop that there. The other thing, when you're talking about impoverishment, that we have to fix the underlying problem. You want to fix the underlying problem, I want you to kind of look at how Black Lives Matter started this time. Last time it was because Michael Brown, that video where we didn't see him put his hands up, and there's a lot of controversy to that. But this time something very, very significant happened, and it's the reason why Trump got a lot of Black support. It started the walkaway campaign. It started a lot of Democrats walking away from the left, and it was when Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. His dementia started coming through the cracks, and his racism leaked.
What? His dementia?
And less than 2 weeks after he said that, we saw the video of George Floyd getting killed, and that was ran all day, 24 hours on every single major news media station. During that time, the black vote was going away from the Democratic left at rates they haven't seen for the past 3 decades. All right. As soon as Black Lives Matter came up, you saw every single Democratic lawmaker, executive, and legislator going in and endorsing Black Lives Matter, encouraging the riots. They were contacting the governors and telling them to make rules of engagement for the police, so the police can't actively arrest these people unless they pull out a gun. So that means if they see somebody assaulting somebody, they can't arrest them. In the justice systems, in the jail, in the prison systems, these anarchists and these rioters aren't even held for overnight. But if you're not Black Lives Matter, you're someone like Kyle Rittenhouse, you get held for an extended period of time. You have to see that as well, that this right now, what we're seeing Black Lives Matter, it's not a civil rights movement. It is a weapon of the Democratic left to gain back ground because they lost it drastically. I don't know if you saw the polls after Joe Biden said that, but Trump rose from a 33% approval rating in the black community to over 56 during that time. All right. And then after Black Lives Matter, you saw it kind of equalize. So you have to also look at the fact that Black Lives Matter has been weaponized. A civil rights movement has been weaponized for political gain. That's extremely dangerous.
Exactly, I agree with
the last thing I have to say is that I am going to say something that the Proud Boys believe in, that I know Johnny Cisgender believes in here in Utah, is that we need to defund the major media. We need to stop. There needs to be something else, because media, four media groups have been able to control the narrative in this country, and it's dangerous. I'm talking Fox 5, I'm talking CNN, I'm talking MSNBC. These media groups have controlled the narrative, and they have created mass hysteria. They have spread outright lies to destabilize our country. There are so many other issues, and because of that, they create the division.
I'll actually agree with you on that when it comes to media, but I'm going to take it a step further, and it needs to be all media needs to be taken care of, because really also as much as we see the mass media and the big stuff being super biased, we have just as much small media, people who are getting on with their cell phone cameras. That type of stuff is also just as biased. And so by defunding the media, or at least reallocating it to something that's going to work better, that is going to fix a lot of the problems. I will agree with you there that changing the media will help, but it is not the sole issue.
It is one of the biggest issues when a couple of commentators on these media groups are able to lead an entire country into mass hysteria. I agree with you. Things that they've said to protect their Democratic front runner has destroyed lives in this country, complete lives in this country. It's taken life in the name of civil rights. They perverted a movement that was started by Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. They're using his name. Their names are name dropping it everywhere, but they're doing it for political gain. And that's why I think the Black Lives Matter, the movement in its entirety, shouldn't exist, and there needs to be something else. It's a beautiful thing, and I want to say this, it is a beautiful thing. There's so much momentum building towards Black civil rights, towards issues that are affecting the Black community that have been ignored for the past 4 years because the attention hasn't been brought. I mean, Trump's been on it, Tim Scott's been on it, but the public, the people have not been focused on it. Black Lives Matter was a distant dream or nightmare for some people. Ferguson was something that was going to go into a history book, and then it popped up again for political gain. So that's just what I'm saying, is that there are a lot of factors, and that's why we have people that are in politics, that understand economics and know what needs to be done. There's so many complex issues. This has been built up over the past 3 decades to force an entire ethnicity into self-repression. It's not something that was done overnight. And we as conservatives and moderate Democrats let this happen. And we need to unite together to take away this radicalization that right now, the radicalization does exist on the right, but right now it substantially exists on the left, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop.
Once again, you basically just agreed with me, which is both sides are wrong, and we need to have something in the middle.
Is it too late to get Thomas Sowell in office?
Thomas Scott?
Thomas Sowell.
Sowell?
That's the man I want in there. I mean,
we got Kanye West in there.
You know who Thomas Sowell is, right?
Yeezy 2020.
Huh?
I said Yeezy 2020.
Yeah. Well, I've always liked Thomas Sowell. He's an economic guy, very intelligent guy. And Larry Elder, you know, we could move them in, at least they're in California politics, and those are a couple of good conservatives. But anyways, I want to round this out by saying the left is scary, but I want the left.
So is the right.
Well, let me finish. I want the left to hear this now. The right is scarier. When the left goes up against monarchists, they generally fare very, very well. But whenever the communists or the left or whatever, the left-wing institution has gone up against republics and they force the hand of the right or force the vote of the right, it's gone bad for the world. And that's what scares me. I'm afraid that these left movements right now are going to wake up the right.
Yeah.
And the last time that happened in our memory is when we got the Nazi Party in Germany. And it was the left that caused that. And it was the left caused that through riots.
Through communism.
Communism?
So we worked to dismantle. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I do have to jump off. You ran a little bit over. I do have to jump off. And,
you're good, man.
Get to a interview, a Zoom live interview. I'm doing damage control right now from what happened yesterday.
What happened yesterday?
What
happened yesterday?
Really, really quick. Yesterday, I went to the Black Lives Matter protest in West Valley City at the police station. And we thought we were under the impression because of what was advertised as for the 13-year-old boy that was shot by a cop. We went to go see it because we thought it was cool that Black Lives Matter was doing something for a white kid. I wanted to go see what their perspectives were, if they're going to change their narrative. I was going to go get footage. We got there. This man came up and he started pushing one of my security and not letting us move. We tried walking back to our cars and he stopped us from moving. This got to the point where he had to deploy his pepper spray and his taser to try to get this guy off of him. And we have this on body cam and footage and everything. You'll see it tonight at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. on ABC2, where he was completely mobbed by Black Lives Matter. They came over, they sprained his wrist because they tried pulling it around in an arm bar. And it got to the point where they were surrounding him. He had exhausted all this non-lethal presence, and he pulled his firearm. The entire time he had it pointed at the ground, and he was telling them to move back. And that's when it escalated. Obviously, cops are called and everything. And he was actually charged with he wasn't charged with anything. So he didn't have rounds in the chamber because he was using it as a deterrent. So he wasn't charged with brandishing a firearm, but he was charged with discharge of taser and pepper spray, blah, 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 and disorderly conduct. But Black Lives Matter wasn't charged with anything, even though that they assaulted him. So that's what happened. And that's why I did the interview today with ABC. I'm doing one at Fox 13, and then tomorrow I have one with Fox 5, just to try to do a little bit of damage control because the national news media station picked it up.
Is the West Valley City, is that, does that get haunted by a lot of the same stuff that the DA in Portland has?
Yeah, it does. Black Lives Matter forms up in front of the West Valley City Police Station all the time. They also have to understand that in these cases, when Damien was shot, he was on parole and he was evading arrest, and then he went to try to pull a weapon on the officer, and they're going and they're advocating for him. Instead of advocating for police reform and prison reform, they're advocating for a man who got shot by a cop in self-defense.
But and like you guys said, it's what the media feeds them.
Yeah, so the media feeds it, and it creates hysteria. But when you look at the police report and you look at the body cam footage, like for instance with George Floyd, you see there's a little bit more to the story, but the media refused to run the body cam footage when it was offered to them.
They ran Chauvin on his neck 24 hours a day for a week. That was in every the corner of every show they did. If they did a show on a dog competition, there would have been that down in the bottom corner and running across the Chiron. And
stoking the fire.
But then when the body cam footage came out, which kind of still Chauvin's still a dumbass, but when that led a little more clarity to it and made you kind of take a breath, because when that first happened, they
stopped saying his name.
I was fired up. But once that body cam footage came out, why doesn't CNN or any of them, why isn't that played? Why isn't a little take a breath as a nation played?
Yeah, they did. They played it for a second. They said controversial footage.
Yeah.
And they played like 5 seconds of it. And then you saw Black Lives Matter. They kind of stopped talking about George Floyd.
Yeah.
And they started referencing Breonna Taylor. But now it's coming out that her boyfriend was a drug dealer. And they actually didn't go into the wrong house. But the city's settling with the family anyway.
Yeah, that was planned. The house was planned because her ex-boyfriend would have drugs delivered to that house.
Yep. So you're not hearing their names anymore. You're slowly not hearing them, and now they moved on to Jacob Blake. But then they're finding that Jacob Blake was a sex.
What did he do the night before? What was he doing the night before?
They keep moving. They keep moving on and on and on.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I'm with you.
And at the end of the day, all organizations both sides need to end, and we need to come together as a third community or a third group and fix the problems.
But what I'm worried about, what I'm saying is I'm worried about the right rising up, because with that you get the truly scary people. And when I say the right, the Republicans or Proud Boys or Patriot Prayer, those guys aren't the right I'm talking about. Those guys are centrist, especially if you adjust for where the Overton window's been moved to in the last, 20 years. Yeah. Those guys are dead centrist. Those guys are liberals. When I talk about the right, I'm talking about the scary stuff. I'm talking about arming people with a racist and an economic message that spells death to this nation.
The rising of the white supremacists. Yeah, it's what a lot of people are nervous about, because that can lead straight into Nazism.
That's how the Nazis appeared. That's how the Nazis appeared. Now, had and the Nazis had to have the communists to show up. They had to have Blood May to appear, and without that, we'd have never had the Nazis.
Yeah, but I do have to hop off.
Yeah.
Hey,
James, thanks for coming on.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, James.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to leave contact information in the show notes. Will you shoot me a message for the Unity organization you started, and then definitely when
I would like that information as well.
Yeah, when this new organization starts, if you would shoot out to us, we'd like to advertise it, because any positive movement is one we can definitely get behind.
We're really excited about it. It's everything that we've worked for. And it seems like, everything's just falling in line, and I think this is a time that it needs to happen.
Yes. And
but what I will say, and if Lex Scott or any of these guys are watching, when that does happen, Black Lives Matter is going to be destabilized in Utah. It's going to invalidate them in so many levels. It's going to be crazy, and it's going to be the first nonpartisan civil rights movement that Utah's seen, but the second one compared to the one that Martin Luther King and his ministry did. So it's going to be really cool, and I'll give all the information out, and I'll actually keep you guys updated on the process with that.
All right, thanks, James. And we're going to have to all do a show together sometime, like in person.
Totally.
Once the Rona has left the house, I suppose. But we'll have to do something together. We'll have a barbecue, drink some beer, and chat.
No, sure.
All right, man.
A barbecue.
Yeah.
All right.
Have a good one.
Later, brother.